Welcome to the Exchange Coffee Podcast, part of the Exchange Coffee Podcasting Network, where coffee people talk to coffee people about coffee and things coffee adjacent. The Exchange is brought to you by Kavoya Specialty Coffee and is hosted by Mark Inman and Todd Mackey. This is episode 41, another recording from the SCA Coffee Show in Houston, and this time it's a doubleheader. First, Mark and Todd talk to Dan Streetman from Bird and Bear Coffee, with a little Rob Stephen on the side. And then they talk to Greg Buchheister from Coffeebar. And now, here they are, Mark and Todd.
Earlier today, I was interviewing real coffee people, being down on the floor with the industry while Todd was getting nails done and massage, living his celebrity lifestyle.
Is that right?
I'm glad to have you here, Dan.
Thank you.
Because you're a man of the people as well. You've been in the industry for a long time. I know that for
Todd...
What
did that initial comment, what did that have to do with having Dan? You were down with the people.
Yeah.
Podcasting.
Right. Not all of us can dedicate as much time to self-care as you do, Todd.
Right.
Hey, I found in the last few years that is an essential part of my process.
Yeah.
What can I say?
You don't look like this on accident. This is a lot of work.
Todd, this is where you ask Mark, what did you have for lunch, Mark?
Mark, where did you go for lunch?
I went to a hotel away from the Pokemon crowd kids down the hall here and had a steak. Yeah, you're right.
What, were you with them?
No. But,
He's that predictable.
I have like 5 items I eat, so Mike, he just spins a wheel. He's going to get one right. While Todd is again looking, so Dan, you have been in the industry an extremely long time. Probably as much as Mike and I.
You're making me feel older than I am, I think.
Well, we're not getting younger.
Are you suggesting that Dan has been in the industry as long as you?
22 years is no, that's no...
How old are you, Dan?
I'm 41.
Okay.
Yeah, we're similar age.
No, that's not true. But what I will say is the first SCAA, going back to pre-SC single A.
Yeah, indeed.
The first SCAA event I attended, you were involved with.
I remember.
What show, what year?
So this wasn't even a show. This is back in the days. For me, it was the Great Lakes Regional Barista Competition.
Oh.
But I competed at the NERBIC one week later.
Such a great name.
And you were there. You were a head judge, I believe, at that time.
Yes.
This would have been 2010.
Okay.
I think. How many years prior to that were you, did you enter and sort of start your way?
Yes. So I started working as a barista in 2003 in college. And then
where was this?
In College Station, Texas.
And the shout out to the shop you worked at?
The shop is long closed.
Oh, okay.
It was called Java Joy.
Rest in peace, Java Joy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a classic.
That's
early 2000s.
Yeah, early 2000s coffee shop name for you. Yeah.
Very on point for the time. What kind of machine did they have in Java Joy?
We had a La Marzocco FB70.
Okay.
Group,
so,
and a Swift grinder.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a good looking machine.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
And at the time, that was peak of the thing.
Yeah, it was, definitely.
Did you have the fluted, cup tray guard?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, nice. Yeah, it really moves me. My hope for getting you out here, Dan, was to just kind of reminisce on, you're here. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a few years for you.
It has, yes.
And you're returning to what is the expo, but soon to be World of Coffee.
World of Coffee.
And what does this do for you? Can we explore
wow.
What do you think? I mean, it's a lot different than it was.
Is it?
That's what I'm asking.
You don't think so?
I mean, it's bigger. There are different exhibitors. There are a lot of things that are different, and thematically it's very the same. I feel like
you don't feel the kind of the energy in the old days, like you would be fired up to be here volunteering, running from this event, doing this talk, doing that, then going to an industry party, then talking till 4 a.m. over whiskey with Mike about the old coffee transports of the 1950s. I mean, you were just buzzing, and now that energy seems to have left.
Interesting.
It's just a trade show now.
Interesting.
It was kind of a trade show then.
I think you're right, and I wonder
so.
how much of that is about your place in it, right? Because for me, yes, I agree with you, but I came. The point for me, right, is, you know, I've been telling everyone, I just came up for air, right? I have 5-year-old twins. I started a business when they were 6 months old. I have
Great
not,
timing to start a business.
Yeah, exactly. I have not stepped out of that immediate proximity of that experience in that time. And so to be here and to just make time to catch up with people like you guys and many other people that I know in the industry, that's all that I want to get out of this, right? I want to see my old friends. I want to connect. I want to hear about what's going on in their lives. I want to glean what wisdom I can from having those connections. But, you know, I interact with new people. You know, one of the things that I do really intentionally when I come to this show is I just say hi to people.
Right.
I just like, hi, who are you? What's your story? Why are you here? And I found that there's a lot of serendipity in that connection. And it's hard for me because it's not something that came naturally. It's actually why I've turned out to not be very good at wholesale sales, because like trying to make the connections with people is really taxing for me.
Right.
But I have always made a point of doing that at the show, and I've found that it's opened so many doors. But I also find that, you know, people like us, we have generations of the industry, right? And things change and they evolve, and we long for the old days. But what I see is that the new people who come in, they have an excitement and exuberance for what's happening.
Sure.
And it's especially interesting at this show, right? Because there's a lot of news coming out, right? A lot of change, and especially people of our tenure in the industry, we're like, whoa, like, what does that mean? Like, how is that going to affect things? And I have my my doubts about the direction that things might go, or how it's gonna work out. And I also see that, you know what, I hear from people at the trade association that there are more people coming than ever, right? And that when people come in, they just take, this is the way it works, and this is what you do, and this is how
it's their point of view.
Exactly. They don't know anything different, right? And so I think that's really interesting. But from my perspective, you know, I think about, okay, so how did we come into this, and what made all those connections valuable? How can we pass that on, right? How do we create community really intentionally? And that is what this show has meant for so many people for so long.
Right.
And, you know, interestingly, actually, one of the things that I think that the association gets to kind of like take by proxy is the value of the connection, even though they don't really, they're just a venue for it.
Yeah, they're a forum.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. And I do think you touched on something, that the energy that I'm saying is gone. It's maybe gone for me because I'm at a different place in my career than a young person coming here for the first time.
Right.
This is exciting. And they're connecting with their community and in a different way. They're on Reddit or whatever. These kids are doing TikToks.
Well, beyond that, if you're new to the show, like you're not only, you know, hey, I'm having this experience. Like you might be walking in here literally blown away that this even exists, right? Like you really can't prepare mentally if you have not been in this room.
Yeah.
Whether it's, you know, 15,000 like last year, or if it's 18,000, you know, whatever the count turns out to be.
Mike, do we know what the count is this year?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah, no, you can't really even prepare your mind for like the scope of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
definitely.
you have like on top of, hey, I don't even know the quote unquote rules, right? Or how this works, or like what these stalwart kind of organizations of the industry should look like.
Right.
All the behind the scenes stuff. It's more, even more so backing up to the fact that like the moment you like queue up at the door, you know, when they cut the tape on day one and thousands of people flow through, and you're like spending hours walking through this maze, you know, there's a certain degree of awe that creates.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
that is not lost on me. I don't know if it is for you, Mark.
No, I think the show now, if I was a new person, this is overwhelming. This is so big compared to like some of the first shows we went. They were large, but they weren't this large.
Yeah.
And so much so, like, you know, in the old days, you could be a roaster and most of the show is relevant to you. Now there's so many factions to where they should almost separate it into halls specific to your segment of the trade, because I could see being new and coming here and be like, this could take a week to get through. This is so big.
Sure. I'm going to shift gears completely.
Great.
I just want to spice things up a little bit. I do want to highlight to our listeners, Dan, you are a thoughtfully dressed man.
Thank you.
And today is no exception.
I knew I was going to be sitting down with Mark, so
sure.
I knew what the expectations
were.
Sure,
and Mark prides himself as to be a well-dressed man as well. The interesting thing is, I had to share with both of you, I think Mark is no longer the best-dressed man
I've
in the
never
room.
been now.
I personally
room?
witnessed... Well, in the so-called room, like at the show.
Oh, yeah, no.
I
know
2 days
exactly
in
who
a
you're
row,
talking about.
there is a man who has got it tuned to a sharper degree.
Yeah.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, Master Roast UK. He's the owner of that and owns Master Call.
Matthew Mills. The incoming chair.
But he has always been the sharpest dressed man in the industry. Always. This guy is like off a runway. He is
nice.
so. Not only that is he the most well-dressed man, but he's probably one of the most striking, good-looking men I've seen at the show.
Does he roast on Seville Row?
He may as well. But I went and visited Matt. I worked with Matt at Vol Cafe.
Okay.
That's where I first met him. And I went and visited him in the UK. He picks me up in like this vintage Jaguar in his suit. It's like James Bond is picking me up to go look at his car. It was ridiculous. And I am so utterly intimidated when I'm next to him. I'm rarely off my game, and I am like in awe of him when I'm around him. Who else looks like him? Nobody else looks. I knew exactly where you were going the minute you spit it out.
I'm glad. That's a fun time. So yeah, Dan, just to give our listeners a touch more context, what are the 3 things that you feel like you've experienced in the last 24 hours here that make it worthwhile to a roaster specifically?
Yeah.
Like, our listenership, our community, to a roaster, like what makes it worth the effort and the resources to come out to an expo or soon to be World of Coffee?
Well, so, I mean, the big thing for me is connecting with my sources, right? So getting time to connect with you guys. I spent some time talking in the booth with Byron yesterday about, hey, this is the type of product that I'm looking for. Where should I be looking within your supply stream for this type of product? When will you be shipping it? How much do you have available? Mm-hmm. Let's talk more about that. Let's talk about how to make this move smoother. And being able to do that on the floor and find new opportunities. So one, connecting with suppliers, right? So, I mean, in this industry, I talk to my suppliers every week, but we get so little FaceTime, and it's invaluable, right? And so much of this industry is built on relationships, it's built on trust, and it's having the time and the space to talk about family and talk about life and talk about philosophy.
Yeah, just warm things up.
Yeah, and that's how you build and create trust, right? And an industry like this where we're separated by so much distance and there's so many opportunities for things to go wrong, I mean, you have to be able to find ways to create trust. And so that's invaluable. 2 is looking for new things, right? So I just spent some time looking at Wayrite, like as I start to grow my business, I have to look at, okay, what are the pieces of equipment or things that I have to invest in to grow? How do I budget for that? How do I understand what is this machine? What should I be looking at, right?
Right.
Oh, what's the most important part of it? Is it the load cell? Is it the computer? Is it the iron piping? Who knows, right? Mm-hmm. You have to become an expert in so many things as a business owner, and the pressure is really high, right? Because if you make a bag $40,000 investment, that can sink you, right?
A lot of people have done it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's 2. And then 3rd is connecting with peers, right? Mm-hmm. So I was talking with somebody today, and they were like, "You've been a roaster. You've been a lonely roaster, right? Just toiling it away, and you have nobody to collaborate with. You have nobody to bounce ideas off of about how do you tweak this profile? How do you get this flavor out of a coffee. You know, what do you do with your past crops? You know, like sharing stories about, oh, I was talking to so-and-so and they almost burned their building down because they didn't clean out their cooling tray, you know, like all that kind of stuff that, you know, I have learned so many things over the years and become a subject matter expert because I got to share in those conversations with people, right? I got to be the fly on the wall to be like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I should really think about that, right? And, oh, how do we build a maintenance schedule into our production systems, right? And because it's easy to not do that, right? Like, if you're cranking in your business and you're not paying attention, you're not being intentional about, hey, we take out the trash every day. Hey, we do this, that, and the other thing at the roaster. This is part of shutting down the warehouse. Then problems happen, right? And
absolutely,
it can cost you a lot of money.
So let's back up a minute here because I know Todd likes to get into his agenda about the show and checking in. But for those there's not very many out there listeners that don't know Dan. But for those that don't know Dan, what is your company now? What are you doing today? Let's start there.
Yeah, so I own a coffee roasting company in San Francisco called Bird and Bear Coffee.
Yeah. Started when?
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
And you're roasting it yourself, and
yes,
you bought a roaster and all of that.
I did not buy a roaster. So we roast inside of a shared coffee roasting facility called Pulley Collective.
Hell yeah, in Oakland.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And then the second piece that I wanted to bring up is Todd has had a theme this weekend with our podcast on having guests that have their own podcast and there's crossover. And I do the comparison to Simon & Simon crossover with Magnum PI, which launched Simon & Simon's show. You also have a podcast, I'm aware of.
I do?
With Trish, don't you?
We don't have a podcast.
Oh, I thought you guys were...
We have a...
what were you doing on...
A fledgling coffee training business.
No, but I thought you guys were doing, was it on Instagram, or are you guys doing shows?
We do Instagram lives from time to time.
Instagram live. So that's not really considered a podcast in your mind?
Very different format.
But you have a title and you have this thing is like a production.
Well, that's all true. She's, she puts the package together for us.
All right, I thought this was another setup where we were doing a crossover episode.
Interesting. I was wondering where you were going with that. And in the meantime, as you were adding a bit of a cloud, we also have another guest who snuck in here.
Well, forced his way in here, our boss, Rob Steve.
I don't think we could say no.
Yeah, as if we had a choice in the matter.
I'm feeling super welcome. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Thanks, boss. See you later. Okay. Next guest. So Rob and Dan have known each other a very long time. We were in Colombia together on Rob's birthday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Years ago.
That's the first time I got to hang out with you. I knew you in the industry prior to that, but so you guys have a long connection. I don't know if you were coming here to bring up some embarrassing stories about Dan or some fact. I know that.
I was asked to sit here without any prompting, so.
Right. Well, we'll do the prompt. You worry about that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Don't bring up the embarrassing stories because I'm pretty sure that I still owe Rob a no pants golf incident from his 40th birthday.
Yeah, I think there's a few cards that I could cash in at this point.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
It's
interesting.
I never, I've played golf maybe 2 times, and then Rob is like,
and you bet on it.
No, I didn't bet.
Oh, okay.
But Rob has a rule that if you don't hit it past the ladies' tee, then you don't get to wear your pants on the next hole.
We'll edit this out for the sake of Rob.
I do not bring this up.
Yeah,
as we should.
HR on line 2,
but not surprised. I believe I've also been presented this same stipulation.
I mean, I'm not a golfer. Is that a thing? Is that
it is a thing?
It's nothing you made up. It comes from a tradition.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I don't know where to go from here.
So you obviously did not hit the ball past the ladies' tee at one point.
Yes,
but it's kind of unfair. You're new to golf. I mean, this is I don't know if this really qualify. If you really qualify for that punishment.
Just to point out that I own the punishment, but I did not mete out the
Invoke,
punishment.
that's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know.
I've noticed with Rob, it's like he wants to bet on things where he's got a clear advantage over you. And that's the only time he wants to make some challenge. It's like, yeah, Rob, I'll play golf with you for money. Then he shows up with like a tour bag and his own caddy. That's
You want to talk about people who manipulate the bet? It's this guy over here.
Is that right?
Manipulate the bet.
Yeah.
The bet that I won, I spent 5 months in training. I lost 30 pounds.
Is this the triathlon?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
The issue there, I'll tell you what actually motivated me. I made this bet after several drinks on,
As most bets are made.
Yep.
it might have been, it was like New Year's Eve or close.
We were at the Red Fez.
Yeah, at the Red Fez, RIP. And I was bet that I couldn't beat Rob with a handicap. I couldn't beat him in a sprint distance triathlon. And I made the bet, and I wanted to make the bet. I was pulled in by some conniving and some trickery. And then I realized, waking up the next day, I was like, oh man, for me to do this, I need gear.
Wow.
Like, I need to have
a bike.
actual stuff that I don't have. Thankfully, I had the bike, but I needed to get a wetsuit because it was in ocean water
Oh, goodness.
in June, which is really cold.
In New England, yeah.
And so I actually went into more of a sort of financial survival mode that actually inspired me every day to wake up. And yeah, no joke, I think I was running the fastest mile on average that I ever have.
Amazing.
I
Did you see
ran
the-
at that SCA was in Seattle, and I ran 7 or 8 miles, and I think I was doing like 7 minutes 30, 7 minutes 45 second miles. Like,
Wow.
it was.
Did you see the movie Vision Quest in the 80s, the wrestling movie?
No.
I imagine that was Todd's
He's 41
training.
years old.
That's true. A famous reference.
both
Todd-
Dan and I were actual
Zygotes.
babies of the
Yeah.
80s.
I'm imagining
Right.
Todd's training montage, like thematic music as he gets up all groggy and starts the jog
You're
in
the
the
best.
morning.
You didn't want to go with Rocky on that one?
No one's ever going to get
It was
you
the
down.
Rocky of the time.
I-
It was a very.
I have 2 points to make about Todd's story here. One is that you and I were connected on the Nike Plus app at that time. And we were running
Of course.
against each other on that thing, and we had a 50-mile bet also. Who's going to hit 50 first? And I woke up that morning 3 miles from getting there, and you weren't even close. And I went out and I did it. When I came back, you had beaten me. You had gone out early that morning and done like
Wow.
a 14-mile run or something like that, and I was crushed.
And
right?
that was the morning after an epic BGA party.
yeah,
Really?
Oh,
God.
yeah.
yeah,
And you ran 14 miles?
No, I didn't run 14.
It was
I
a
ran
lot.
like 7.
yeah. But
Something.
That's still a lot.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I did great. It was
Especially after one of
I-
our
I-
classic
awesome. That was probably the best shape I've been in.
And then the other one was the night we made the bet. You were hemming and hawing, and at some point, when I could tell that you were almost there, I said, Todd, under no circumstances should you let the approximately 15-year difference in our ages be a consideration. And he went, I'm in!
Yes, however, you let it be a consideration because you had how many minutes? Like
Oh, yeah, no, you beat
15?
me. You beat me.
I think you said that the difference in our ages will be the number of minutes that you have as a handicap.
Yeah, and
Wow.
you still beat the pants off me. I lost. I paid you that money gladly, man.
It was great.
Yeah.
I have a wetsuit.
Yeah, there
It's
were no
fantastic.
losers in that bet, I have a feeling.
No.
No, it was very good. It was
Yeah.
very good.
It's always a great lesson, though, and that's, I mean, part of what I think is so great about this show is that we build relationships and people inspire us to be better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Thank you for inspiring me, Rob.
Thank you for taking my money.
Always appreciate it. Dan, could not be more grateful for you to take some time out of your schedule, sit down with us here, be so happy to introduce Bird and Bear to our listeners.
How would people get a hold of you, Dan, if they wanted to get a hold of Bird and Bear?
Go on our website,
Which is
birdandbearcoffee.com.
birdandbearcoffee.com.
You heard it here. Dan
You heard it here
Streetman.
first. Dan
Thank you
Streetman,
so much.
man and a legend.
Thank you, guys.
Sitting with, of course, my esteemed co-host Mark Inman, our executive producer Mike Ferguson, and my freshest friend Greg. I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
It's Buchheister.
Buchheister.
Yeah.
Awesome. And Greg, Who are you? Where are you coming from? And what brings you to the SCA Expo?
Before we get to that, let me preface this. So Greg and I met a couple years ago, Coley by accident, really.
Yeah.
And we have connected. We text all the time. We talk all the time. He has the most craziest story about how he got into coffee, his background, his family history, that would almost be warranted a full episode about just how he got to where he is with his company. But today we're going to get an abbreviated version. So you can give as much or as little detail as you want.
Yeah. Well, grew up ski racing, Winter Park, Colorado, and raced a bit with like the U.S. ski team. Ended up at the University of Colorado, ski raced with them. We ended up winning a national championship back in 1995.
May I ask a technical question?
Yeah.
Is this like slalom or?
Yeah, like slalom and giant slalom.
Okay.
Sometimes some downhill.
Okay.
Every now and then a Super G.
There you go. All right, continue.
Yeah, and so when I was in college, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. My mom was an entrepreneur, and I was just like, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I just knew I wanted to do that. And was bartending at this Italian restaurant while I was trying to start this crack brain idea I had for advertising on elevators in high-rise buildings, and we started a company called Elevated Ideas. But it was before wireless and before flat panel monitors, so it was like a touch ahead of its time, right? And now you kind of see them everywhere, gas stations, whatnot. But I was bartending at this Italian restaurant, and the owner's son and his business partner were importing wine from Italy, and they met this coffee family in Piedmont, in this little town of Bra, like up in the north where like Barolo and Barbaresco, Barbera, Dolcetto, like that whole like version of grapes and wine were.
Yeah, these are wine grapes, Mark.
Yes.
Oh, thanks.
Just making sure you're sticking with us.
Also the home of the slow food mood.
Yes,
Yeah.
Bra is the home of slow food.
I didn't know that, Todd. I didn't know the Barbaras that we're talking about.
The Barbaras, yes. I can't even talk. I've had too much caffeine. So we met this coffee family. They'd been roasting since 1942, and I was 26 years old at the time, and we negotiated the rights to the whole United States for their coffee, and we started importing it and selling it to restaurants in Boulder. My partner's father had 2 restaurants, Italian places in Boulder, and that's how we started. So 8 years later, I'd done 3 shops, and we had like 150 wholesale clients, but I had a really crappy partner and ended up sort of like losing my shirt and walking away with nothing. So kind of had a big start over. Ended up working for Dasbog for a year. We opened up 9 stores in 13 months for them, which was kind of crazy. It's my only official year of ever being like employed by an employer. Then I helped my friends who had a tea concept called Pico open up 3 shops. And then it was about 2009. I'm like, I'm just going to do this on my own. So I moved from Colorado out to California. I thought this was going to be in LA, but LA was like a 2-year permitting process. And so I ended up on this back street in Truckee, California. When I signed my lease, I had $100 left in my bank account. And I put 40 grand on my credit card, raised 100 grand in 60 days, and we opened up 15 years ago in October. So now we have 10 stores, 2 pizza concepts with a 3rd on the way, a new roastery on the way, 1 more store, and yeah, a lot more people than I ever thought we would have working with us. So it's been a journey.
And
Awesome.
you're not just focused on the Truckee area. You have stores down in Silicon Valley.
So yeah, we have our first store was in Truckee 2010. Then we opened in Reno 2014. Then we did a bakery in 2015. We did one at the base area, Olympic Valley, 2017. And then we kind of jumped up over the hill, did a store in Menlo Park, which ended up being crazy pants. Like we tried to recruit for 10 weeks, only got 1 person that even applied down there. And so 7 of us opened up a store, which in 10 days was doing over 850 people a day. Only 1 shift open from 7 to 3, and 7 of us were running it basically like 7 days a week. It was crazy. Then we opened one in Redwood City, and yeah, so the story goes. So yeah, it's been quite a journey. Unanticipated. I was like, I'm only going to do 1 store because I never want to have multiple locations, and then here we are.
Yeah. Wow. Now you have a chain. And then you also have a restaurant, Italian.
Yeah, we have a restaurant in Reno called Dopo. We do pizza, like a Neapolitan pizza, and we hand make all of our pasta. It's sort of like Dopo means after in Italian, and so it's like a fitting end to a day that starts at Coffeebar. You finish it at Dopo with all the things we can't do at Coffeebar, like pizza and fresh pasta and cocktails and all that stuff. Cool. Because Americans, even though we have beer and wine at all of our stores, like you would see in Italy, Americans can't get their head around the fact that you can get a glass of wine or a beer at a coffee shop still after all these years.
Right.
Whereas like Italy, it's a staple. Like you go to your corner place morning, noon, and night.
Sure.
You get something great for any time of day. So that was always kind of our motto, something great for any time of day.
That's awesome.
So.
And you at the show here, you just got here.
Yeah, I got in last night.
So have you had a chance to roam the halls?
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, like ran into the Cat and Cloud guys. I have tons of respect for them. Ended up meeting Colby from Verve, who I'd never met before, and had a great conversation with him. Met the guys from Proud Mary. They're doing some really special things, I think, and then, we have our own agenda of roasters and equipment and packaging and bagging and production stuff. And we were just sampling our coffee over at the e-com booth for the last couple hours. And it's kind of a low impact SCA. Opposite to you, I've only been to like 4 of these ever.
Is that
in
right?
the history. Yeah, I never really looked for like outside, input on what I was doing. I just kind of did it. And now I've been in coffee for over half my life.
Yeah.
But it's fun to come to these shows because it fills your cup. Like you see all these other people that are passionate about this business and the impact it has, not only on the communities that we're in, but just in everybody that works in this business.
Right.
And it's really fun to get together and see people you care about.
Well, what I think is interesting about your approach to this industry is that because you didn't look outside for a lot of influence or help, that the concept of Coffeebar is really unique compared to other coffee bars where people are networking all the time. There tends to be this homogenous feel to a lot of these coffee places. The look and feel of your place is like going to Italy. It's not like being in the United States whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I do attribute that to you being insular and being focused with your early influences in coffee that really have evolved into still this, like if you were in Italy, how would that have evolved? It's what the coffee bar is now.
Yeah, my motto, like my personal why is like, I love making people feel great so they can go out in the world and achieve their dreams. Like that's my why. Coffee Bar's why is like, we provide the fuel that propels you throughout the day. Dopo's why is like, come in, sit down, and let's either celebrate your wins or like figure out your learns for the day and start again fresh tomorrow. And so for me, it's always been like, I didn't grow up being like, oh, espresso is my thing. Like I love this, but I love the way I felt when I was in those shops in Italy, whether it was when I was ski racing when I was young or when we started Amante. And it was just like, gosh, it doesn't feel like this in the US.
Right.
You don't get these open arms, this welcome. It's a lot of times you almost got like, no, we don't do that.
Right.
And we were like, yes, we can do that. Like I can make someone from Starbucks or Pete's happy. And I can also like, find someone who's got a hipster, fixie with a handlebar mustache, and I can make that person happy too. So we cast a wider net, and it's more about making people feel great than it is about, like this uber geeky 19.5 gram shot of espresso. And we still get uber geeky, but that's not what we lead with.
Yeah,
right?
that's not what people are meant to connect to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
love that.
But you can get geeky if you want. We can talk about geishas and this and that and, all the things, but, a lot of people still want a cup of dark roast.
Right.
Totally.
And and we have that.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think that's just been more my philosophy. But I love the geekery. I love getting nerdy. I love, the half gram here and the half gram there.
Right.
I mean, I think it's part of dialing it in. It was like ski racing. Grew up ski racing, and you're not like, oh, I'm going to go try and go slower next run. You're like, how can I get 1/100th faster?
Right.
How can I get a 10th faster? How can I get a second faster? And it's this constant tweaking, and we've tried to do that with the business over the years. So,
what are the things that you've seen on the floor that have impressed you, stood out for you, been unique on this experience here?
There's not as many tight jeans as I thought there'd be at this.
Yeah, baggies.
Yeah,
the
like
thing.
it's.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
I
for
think
sure.
after the Super Bowl performance, with the guy wearing the kind of bell-bottomy jeans, Kendrick Lamar, started to loosen up a little bit.
Yeah. You think that's a
seem
good
more
thing?
like Hawaiian stuff? I mean, I don't know. It depends on what your diet is and how much you have to suck in your gut. I guess, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm a total fan for Italian style, like a nice cravat and a jacket.
I still am there. Yeah.
You look good.
But my wife still gets on me about, you could there's looser pants are getting in style. I'm like, not in this house, it ain't.
No, but I just love seeing all the innovation. I love seeing vendors that we've worked with for like almost 15 years that we have great relationships and putting faces to names, that you see in an email thread. And you're like, oh, that's this person. And oh, that's this person. And they're like, oh, you're Greg from Coffeebar. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. So that part's fun.
Yeah.
And I do like seeing like my community of people. And like I was telling the Cat and Cloud guys, like they're so inspirational because they're like kind of broadcasting their experience. Where a lot of mine is sort of like you're figuring it out on your own. And it's so fun to watch them sort of learn on the fly and share it with everyone. So you can take those experiences and get better.
Shout out to the Cat and Cloud podcast, which is also on your podcasting platforms.
I haven't listened to it lately, but the early episodes were like liquid gold driving back and forth in Menlo Park.
Right.
So.
No, they got a following. Do you know them at all?
Not well. We've crossed paths. No,
it seems like you would know them. I would assume you.
No, I mean, those guys were really critically involved in the Barista Guild, like ahead of when I got involved, and friends of friends. But being on the East Coast,
that's true.
Cross paths less. I know. Is it Josh or Ian works with them?
Yep.
Yeah. So very cool. I gotta ask, for someone as sort of. The way your story comes through to me in a really cool way, is almost like this kind of super driven, but almost unintentionally expansive, expansive mindset driven. So as a result, it sounds like your businesses have just flourished, right? And expanded. I mean, like what do you do to kind of almost protect your boundaries around that? Like,
I mean, my wife would say that I don't.
Okay.
I'm horrible at boundaries when it comes to work because I do love this. I have some more on my life now because we have 3 young girls. Okay. We have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-month-old, and that kind of creates some boundaries for you, whether you want them or not. But yeah, it was like this unintentional, like, I never wanted to have more than one store, and then all of a sudden we were getting crappy snowfall in Tahoe, and I'm like, I can't have my whole livelihood revolve around whether we get snow in the Sierras. So let's expand to Reno. And then Reno happened, and it's like, well, we need more baking production because the store is really busy and trucky. And I reached out to this lady, and I was like, hey, can I borrow or rent some space to bake in the mornings? And she's like, I'm closing in 10 days. And I'm like, don't do that. Like, let's figure this out. So I paid her rent for 3 months. She had a gluten-free bakery, so we ended up building a wall so she could do her gluten-free. We put an espresso machine in the front. And that was that bakery.
Start piping the gluten on the other side.
Yeah. Full gluten, all the time. And then Squaw Valley reached out to us and we're like, we love what you're doing down the street. Would you do one here? And then, it just kind of happened.
That's what I mean. You kind of, if you have that expansive mindset, right? Like you attract it, right? You're very magnetic, even clearly, like on first impression. But it's hard to kind of pare that down if and when you want to, right? So I imagine that's a challenge.
But as much as, I understand that take on him, but he's had some significant setbacks in life that we were talking on our walk this morning, where like the partnership you walked away from, he had this challenge to like raise how many millions of dollars in like this tiny time frame, and I'm like, oh my God, that must have been impossible. And he goes, well, I got like 100,000 off, or it got super close. I'm like, how would you do that? So even when he's knocked in the dirt, he seems to find his way back quickly.
That's the perfect example of having a huge expansive mindset, right? The willingness to fall to pieces, right? To have something fail, right? It even, I know that's not a negative, right? See that as like, hey, this was the doorway to what has happened and probably far exceeded, what could have happened.
It's hard to see in the moment, for sure.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Like when you fall and scrape up your knees. But I think what ski racing taught me is like you fail so much more in that sport than you succeed.
Right.
And so you're always, it's almost like you work harder when you get second and third.
Sure.
And then when you win, you're like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
I don't even know what to do with winning. And I probably didn't win as much as other people. Otherwise, I would have been in the Olympics with my friend, not watching him from the base area. But it did teach you a lot of like self-reliance. I think like individual sports like golf or skiing or tennis, like it's just you out there.
Yeah.
You have a support team, but it's you. But the other thing I loved about it was, and what I kind of like about coffee, is that you're competing against people that you really like and that have the similar mindset to you, and you can be friendly, but you can still be competitive.
Right.
And that was ski racing. Like, we all rode the lift together, we all rode in the van together, but at the end of the day, like, I kind of want to kick your ass when I'm racing.
Yep.
So I think having that experience like allowed me to go through the failures I had with Amante. My wife and I lost our son 5 years ago. He was 3 years old and got the flu, and he died in 2 days. Then it was COVID. Then it was the closure of a store on Facebook campus, and so it's like you get kicked in the nuts enough, but like I've always been able to get back up and start moving forward again. And I think, I don't know if that's inspirational to people, then that's great. For me, I just try and get out of bed and do a good job every day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think being around this community fills my cup. Like, I have been in this business for like 25 plus years now, and seeing everybody else that's so passionate, it's this feeling that you can't really get anywhere else.
That's
and so
awesome.
I love that part.
Yeah. Well, I'm thankful to sit with you here and absorb that energy. And it's a
thank
gift.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So how would listeners get a hold of you? How would they find Coffeebar online?
Well, we're at our Instagram handle is pretty easy. It's just at Coffeebar. Our website's just coffeebar.com. Our pizza place is Dopo Pizza Pasta. So you can find us there. We have a handful of followers, but
Well, hopefully our giant listener audience will garner you some more
Yes,
followers.
please.
Yeah.
Join us in the journey. It's been a fun ride. It's been bumpy from time to time, no doubt. But we just keep plugging away every day.
That is life.
It's like you're only as good as the next cup you make, right? Like,
there you go.
We're
right.
not guaranteed tomorrow, and you can't do anything about yesterday. So all we have is like literally right now, the four of us sitting around this table,
Right.
talking shop.
Greg, pleasure as
Thanks,
always.
Mark.
Yep.
Yeah, so nice
Great
to meet you here.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You've been listening to the Exchange Coffee Podcast, part of the Exchange Coffee Podcasting Network, brought to you by Kavoya Specialty Coffee, where coffee is always a collaborative voyage. The Exchange is hosted by Mark Inman and Todd Mackey, and produced by me, Mike Ferguson. Our opening theme and interstitial was Bird and Bear by Seabird, and our closing theme is Snow by Vitalik Music. Remember, you can always email me at mike.ferguson@kavoya.com. Thanks for listening, and now, your postscript.
He's not kidding.
No, he's not. I got a talking to the other day.
From the Ferguson?
Oh yeah.
That's never pleasant.
No.